So Bert Kreischer went off on 5 different comics on the last episode of Two Bears, One Cave, and it was a pretty interesting episode. I recommend you go watch it. But right off the start, he pretty much trashes those comics who essentially treated them badly at the beginning of their career, and they dropped names. Of course, they bleeped them out, but they gave us enough clues to give us some idea of who they potentially are talking about, and we have some candidates. So let's get right into it.
Sometimes there's like a pecking order in comedy where like guys have been to you for a long time, and they've been bigger than you, and then one day you're bigger than them. I wish I could say the real name. I'll say it, but edit it out.
Okay.
And like they just popped at a younger age, and then for whatever reason, everyone has a stall and it goes back. And I've been there, but to hear them go like they've been to me when I was nobody, and then they're like, so you and Tom do like birthday presents, and I was like, I bought him a race car last year. And they're like, huh? And then to watch it in their eyes, it was the most irresponsible thing I've ever done. Yeah. And it was worth every cent for 3 people. Yeah. To look in 3 people's eyes. 3 comics that treated me like shit when I was nobody. Yeah. For them to go, how much money are you guys making? And I go, not that much. Yeah. Just...
I know. Here's the thing. If Bert actually started taking shots at other comedians on Two Bears, One Cave, it would be insane. It would be insane. And a lot of people thought that he was referring to Brendan Schaub, Brian Callen, or Chris D'Elia. And although that is a fun idea, it just doesn't add up because, well, first of all, they were not big when Bert was coming up. And also, both Chris and Brendan Schaub have been on the Bertcast not too long ago. Now, based on what Bert was saying, here are the 5 comics that come to mind. Jim Brewer, Amy Schumer, Carlos Mencia, Jay Moore, and the 5th one could honestly be anybody.
I was with a comic yesterday who asked me, we were talking about stand-up, we were just catching up, and it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm doing big things in Cleveland. And I was like, oh, really? He was like, yeah, man, you should hit me up when you're there. Like, we do a podcast, and I got event space. He's like, where do you play when you're in Cleveland? I said, the Rocket Mortgage Center. And he goes, huh? I said, the place where the Cavs play. He goes, that's where you do stand-up? And I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, okay. And then he just walked away. Yeah. And I was like, and then, by the way, this guy's been to me. Yeah. And it was a great moment where I wasn't trying to be a dick. I was just telling him that in 2023, I'll be at the Rocket Mortgage Center again.
You're like,
it was so funny because the look on his face. Edit this out. It was. He goes, where were you? That. He goes, where were you? Where do you play in Pittsburgh? I said, PBH Paints Arena, and he goes, huh? I said, he goes, where the Penguins play? I said, yeah.
Of course, we want to know what those names are, but what I thought was interesting was how passionate Bert was about saying those names. Like, he really wanted to call those people out, which I think it might be a possibility down the road. Obviously, they know they have a huge platform, and they kind of do have to watch what they say in a way. Now, he could be talking about Carlos Mencia. Obviously, he was huge back then. He is not now. But the thing is, I don't think Mencia has a podcast, at least not an active podcast that Bert was on recently. And I just don't think that he was referring to him. If anything, I would put my money on Jay Moore.
And his wife said something about getting an episiotomy. I didn't know what that was at the time. And he said, that's funny, Mike's so big, she had to get an episiotomy before having sex with me. And I didn't know what an episiotomy was. And I said, what's an episiotomy? And she whispered it in my ear. And I started laughing, and I was like, shut the up. That happened to you? And she was like, yeah. And he just smacked me. He was like, don't you ever talk to my wife like that. And I was like, what? 4 years later, we're in Irvine. Me and Segura are going to have sushi. And he texts us. He's like, let's go eat. We're like, we're having sushi. And he came over, and he sat down at the table. He's like, what the f*** is this? And I was like, sushi, it's healthy. He's like, rice isn't healthy. And I was like, well, this is what we're eating. And he was like, no, let's leave. And I was like, you leave. We're staying here. And he's like, what? And I said, I just told you what. And he slapped me again.
And real quick, if you can do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button. It helps out a ton. And we are trying to get to 20,000 subscribers. So thank you. So this is the one that makes me think that it was Jay Moore. And even though it is not the most fun option, I think based on evidence, it's the most possible, in my opinion, because Bert has shared a lot of stories, even on Tiger Belly, about how he fell off, had a huge fall off with Jay Moore. And then he also shared another story about how he got slapped by Jay Moore and one time in front of Tom Segura. So right off the bat, that's the person that I would think he would still have some weird feelings about. And if that's the case, I'm all for exposing older comedians that used to walk all over newer comics. At the end of the day, if they handle it correctly, it just benefits both of them because they get more exposure.
But by the way, for the record, there are dudes. We're just calling out like 5. They're 5. And by the way, you guys all shit them online anyway. Like, they're not on our podcasts. If they're on our podcast, it's not them. I'll say a name again, but you got to edit it out. But make it so my lips can read it.
Yeah.
The worst is inside the female world.
Yeah.
Because the female comic says to the lower comics is mean girl shit.
Who?
She says things. I overheard her say to a woman one time, "I'm so glad you started to wear clothes that fit your body," on stage. And I went,
oh. To another comic?
To another comic. And I was like,
now this one is a bit tough, just based on the evidence and what they said. I think they're talking about Amy Schumer, because there are different examples and videos of people talking about how rude she was to other comedians. But again, they didn't really talk too much about it, so this one is just a wild guess. And I'm just going by the most hated comedian, not named Brendan Schaub. The funny thing is that everybody else is just as clueless. I looked online, I looked on the subreddits, on the comment sections, and everybody had no clue who they could be talking about. We all came essentially to the same conclusions based on what they were saying, but you can tell me who you think it is, but I highly doubt that anybody will guess it correctly, but maybe. Once again, it was a great episode. It was really funny. I recommend you go watch it. Bert and Tom have this insane competition going on, and it was Bert's birthday, so he gifted him this insane gift, and the whole bit was hilarious. So you should definitely watch it. But overall, I do think it would be funny and entertaining if Bert started going off and calling out comedians by name. It would definitely start a wave of chaos and people going at each other. But at the end of the day, I think it would just be pure entertainment. After all, it is not a new concept, and athletes, YouTubers, and celebrities, even companies, they all do it, and they profit from all the free exposure that they can get. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps out a ton, and we'll be uploading videos every other day. Again, let me know what you think in the comments below. Dislike the video if you didn't like it, and that's all we have for today. See ya.